Ebusiafo aha Ghanatube so ensema etwepum ewo yeman Ghana mu ni nyina onsa ebeka ewa hanti na matena CD no hu se makwakoboaboa ensem ano ede aba ebusiafo mepese ensema yakoso ewo man Ghana mu beka kotie aba yeba na matwaso ede ama.
Office of Special Prosecutor OSP finally brings criminal charges against the former secretary to the defunct Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, Charles Bishu, and one other after 6 years of investigation and legal tussle. Now we've got the details from the Special Prosecutor's Office. I'm going to go through it every step of the way so you understand the latest to this particular story that has been running for quite a while now, and especially now the call to revisit the details of the Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng authored report as chair of that and the defunct IMCI as we speak. But the Special Prosecutor's Office has dragged the former secretary to the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, Charles Bishu, to the High Court over alleged corruption-related offences. Charles Bishu has been charged with various counts of corruption by a public officer and using public office for profit. He's not alone in this. There's another gentleman. According to the OSP, Charles Bishu allegedly issued some directives that particular period while he was in office, and he used his office as secretary of the IMCIM to collect 35,000 cedis from one Benjamin Ejapong for, quote, the purpose of circumventing established requirements of the Interministerial Committee in respect of verification of documents for renewal of mining licenses. That's the man you see on the screen there. Now, another accused person, Andy Thomas Owusu, has also been charged with using public office for profit and accepting bribe to influence a public officer. Now, he is accused of facilitating the payment of the money to Charles Bishu, and that's the man you see on the screen there. It's one that we've been following quite closely, and also how things have been playing out over the last at least 6 years from the Special Prosecutor's Office. And now we do know that this is what the Special Prosecutor has resorted to do. Now, Dennis Pabewadam is going to be joining me in a bit. We'll have a conversation on this particular issue and how things are playing out, specifically with respect to the Special Prosecutor's next move on this, and taking into consideration the fact that at least the last few weeks and months gone by, Charles Bishu has instituted a number of measures to not have him arrested, as we do know, and what the latest development is right now. Dennis Paber with us in the studio. Let's have a quick conversation on this. And just to recall, for the uninitiated, those who don't know what we're talking about, these are the charges that the OSP has leveled against Charles Bishu and Andy Thomas. Also, it's good to have you, Dennis. What do we know?
So, there are 15 counts of corruption and corruption-related offenses that has been leveled against the two persons, Charles Bishu and one Andy Thomas Owusu. Now, 6 counts are specifically against Mr. Charles Bishu, and then the other 9 are counts that are against Thomas Owusu. Now, when you go into, even before we go into the details of that, Alfred, this has come a very long way, and it's instructive to put on record that this is a matter that has traveled for about 6 years now, because the documentary that's formed the basis for the investigation and then the subsequent charges that have been mounted on, leveled against these people, was aired in 2019. So when you count from 2019 to now, we are looking at 6 years. And it has traveled a long way. That is because quite a number of things have happened along the line, despite the fact that the OSP also said they were doing some investigations. There were also some legal tussles along the line and legal hurdles that they needed to cross. First being the case that when this particular documentary was aired, the documentary did indicate that some persons who were working in the Interministerial Committee against illegal mining a committee that Mr. Charles Bishu was the secretary to, together with some police officers, were captured on tape, allegedly taking bribes to facilitate the acquisition of some mining license. You would recall that in 2017, when the MPP government came into power, they decided to take some steps to sanitize the space in the mining sector. Mining or illegal mining was a big deal. It still is. But as part of that, that committee was formed. Fast forward, I mean, when this documentary was aired, it caused a lot of problems. Charles Bishu decided to step down. He said he wasn't guilty, but for the process to be able to go through, smoothly, he decided to step aside. Now, two things happened. The Tiger IPI, who were the producers of that documentary, decided to petition the OSP. The presidency also requested a raw footage of that same documentary, for which they said they were also going to commence investigations in. That footage was submitted to a CID of the Ghana Police Service. Now, along the line, the police CID also commenced investigation in this, while the OSP was also looking into the same matter. It so happened that the CID, for want of a better word, cleared Charles Bishu together with those other people who were caught on tape allegedly doing what they were not supposed to be doing. Tiger IPI was not happy with it. They had indicated that they were rejecting this because, in their view, they only petitioned the Office of the Special Prosecutor. They did not petition the Ghana Police Service, so that they were still cooperating with the Ghana Police Service to have the matter investigated.
That's right.
Now, mind you, this happened at the time that the former Special Prosecutor was in office. This happened under
Burns Alamisi.
Yes, Martin Amido. He had cause to complain why there were parallel investigations, and that just when he was about inviting the people to begin the investigation, he had heard on radio that there was a CID report that had cleared some of the people. He wasn't particularly happy about it. But fast forward, we'll get to a point where the OSP now announces that it has concluded investigations in the matter and was ready to issue directives on the way forward. Fast forward, they secured an arrest warrant. They declared Charles Bishu wanted and making moves to arrest him. He opposed that. He instituted multiple actions at the High Court, all aimed at stopping the OSP or the Special Prosecutor from executing that arrest warrant. In fact, one of the suits was challenging the authority of the OSP to the effect that the CID had already investigated him and that the matter was closed, that the Office of the Special Prosecutor did not have the power to look into that matter again. There was also another suit that was to the effect that his rights were abused as to how the OSP handled that particular issue. So all those were matters that the OSP was dealing with, alongside still trying to investigate the matter and also see if there was the need to prefer charges against the OSP. Now, the persons, the suspects.
So I know we're going to get into the charges, but while we access that, let me bring in Adam Senano, who's the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Senano, thank you for joining us. I mean, looking at the chronicle of events and how this case has traveled over the past 6 years to date, now hearing that the Special Prosecutor has filed 15 criminal charges against Charles Bishu, the former secretary of this IMCIM, and then also his alleged accomplice, Andy Thomas Owusu, for corruption and abuse of public office in a mining license scandal involving 35,000 cedis. How does all of this strike you?
I would commend the Office of the Special Prosecutor for keeping faith with the people of Ghana and not giving up. I do know that I think Charles Bishu and others had used whichever means to try and scuttle the case proceeding. They had, I think, appealed with charge and elsewhere, and these cases were dismissed. So it's good to know that they haven't dropped the case, especially on a day when there were protests also about this whole illegal mining issue. I think that it's a good thing to know that the case has not been dropped and that they're making some progress.
Absolutely. And that progress is what then leads me to the next matter. looking at the previous instances and how this case has traveled, Dennis touched on it briefly on the period when Charles Bishu himself got this 10-day ex parte and then preventing the special prosecutor for essentially having him arrested, and then also the seeking the declaration that a notice marking him as a wanted man was void. And then now, with what we are seeing with this latest from the special prosecutor, how do you expect the coming days to look like?
First of all, it's further in the cup of the OSP that in spite of all these, they've gotten through it. So clearly the warrant was not unlawfully gained. All the issues raised that have been dismissed just tell you that the Office of the Special Prosecutor were well within their mandate and had acted in accordance with law as they proceeded. Otherwise, would have had a court case highlighting the lack of process or procedure or the lack of mandate, as the case may have been. So it's a feather in the cap of the OSP that none of these attempts to, as it were, obstruct their effort to pursue justice and a ruling have been halted. I think that should give them some confidence. It is said that the wheels of justice grind slowly, but grind they do. So these are things that within their space are aspects of their work that they ought to be accustomed to and not deterred or in any way intimidated. I think substantively what they would need to do is to just continue till we set the precedent. And that's what happens. To the extent that then you have a ruling in your favor, in this case I see they're focusing on the use of public office for profit and highlighting the fact that it's against the criminal code. Once they are able to get through the process and get a ruling and set a precedent, it will then make it easier for subsequent cases. So I think that they should just be determined to sustain the momentum, anticipate that whatever gimmicks are left in the box that the respondents can try, they'll keep trying. And I don't think we should be surprised. I've been telling people that one of the unfortunate things is that the media space appears to think that the key indicator of the work of a special prosecutor is when cases have been won. Far from it. In the anti-corruption and good governance space, it is what you have prevented. So we say prevention is much more important than prosecution, because you can spend a lot of money and time on prosecution, get little from it. We expect you to use whatever other means to retrieve monies and assets without having to spend time in court, etc. So I am hopeful that this will allow them to make some significant gains. If they get a ruling, that would certainly move our fight against corruption further.
All right, getting to the charges. What is the special prosecutor going to court this time around with? Well,
so basically, the charges that have been preferred against the two persons largely hover around Section 17.
Let's expand it.
Yes. Okay, right. That's so. Wait. So, Section 179 CA of the Criminal Offences Act 29. And as you would see, that any person who, while holding public office corruptly or dishonestly, abuses the office for private profits or benefits, or not being a holder or a public office, acts or is found to have acted in collaboration with another person holding public office for the latter to corruptly or dishonestly abuse the office for private profit or benefits, commits an offense. The other one has to do with, so there's another which is Section 239 of the Criminal Offences Act as amended by Act 1034, and that has to do with corruption of a public officer too. That a public officer or juror shall not commit corruption or willful oppression or extortion in respect of the duties of office. A person shall not corrupt any other person in respect of a duty as a public officer or juror. So you notice that emphasis it's on public office, and that's because the office that Charles Bishu held at the time is deemed to be a public office.
Rightly so.
Now, when you also look at the facts that the OSP puts as part of the charge sheet, he recounts how the office was established, what its mandate was, what they were doing, and the key roles that Charles Bishu was playing in there. He goes on to recount how the Tiger IPI documentary makes some revelations, including the sting operations that they did and how they used a company that really does not exist as an exist to be able to get some permits or some license to mine. In doing so, some monies were negotiated, they exchanged hands, part of it went to Charles Bishu as they alleged, and part of it went to Andy, and that's the reason for which they are preferring these charges against them.
I see.
And some my cost or any abakuti about Ebusian for as I'm a sorry Muslim say only comments ever prime comment section. Now Modofo Snowy Mejibre Akinkai in Semnina and the Amameka will say aha a Ghanatube so Ebusian for unsubscribe and subscribe now hitting your notification bell no if I might send a bear in Semno yet the 2 man not win in 10 pounds aha a Ghanatube more Modofo Snowy Sisi Ade Akram.